The year was 2137, and Earth was weak. For decades, humans had fought wars over land, oil, and power. The climate was broken. Storms came without warning, seas had risen, and cities were drowning. People prayed for hope, but hope was rare. Then, one night, the sky itself changed. Without warning, giant silver ships appeared above the clouds. They were smooth, shining like mirrors, stretching across the horizon. The ships made no sound, but the air trembled. Children screamed, dogs barked, soldiers froze. Every screen in the world turned on by itself. And a single voice spoke, calm and strong. "We are the guardians," the voice said. "We promise to protect Earth, to protect humanity, and to guide you into a safe future." The words fell like fire into human hearts. Some people cried, some shouted in joy, others hid in fear. For the first time in history, all humans listened together to the same voice. It felt like a dream or a warning. The guardians did not land. They only hovered in the skies, silent and patient. No weapons were fired, no attack came. Governments waited, militaries stayed ready, but nothing happened. The ships only watched. In New Geneva, the United Earth Council gathered. Presidents, kings, generals, and ministers sat in one hall. They argued for hours. "Is this a trap?" one shouted. "Maybe it is a gift," another replied. No one knew the truth, but everyone agreed. The guardians were powerful, far beyond human strength. While the leaders argued, people on the streets made their own decisions. Some prayed to the ships, calling them angels. Some cursed them, calling them demons. Others simply lived in fear, staring at the sky every night. And then something strange happened. The guardians chose a human, not a leader, not a soldier, not a scientist. They chose Daniel Hayes, a simple farmer from Texas. His face appeared on every television, every phone, every screen on Earth. He stood in front of his old farmhouse, his hands shaking. No one knew why he was chosen, but the guardian's voice said clearly, "This man will speak for you." Daniel's voice was quiet, but steady. He looked into the camera, into the eyes of billions, and he asked the question no leader had dared to ask. "Protect us from what?" The world froze. Every street, every home, every city became silent. It was the question everyone had in their hearts, but no one had spoken it out loud. Until Daniel. The guardians did not answer. The ships glowed brighter in the skies. Shadows stretched across oceans and mountains. But the voice was silent. Daniel asked again, louder this time. "If you came to protect us, then who is the enemy? Who is coming? What danger is near?" Still, there was no answer. Only silence. And that silence felt heavier than war. People began to whisper in fear. Some thought the guardians were lying. Some thought something worse was waiting beyond the stars. Others believed humanity had only one choice: accept the protection, no questions asked. But Daniel did not stop. He clenched his fists and shouted into the camera, "Tell us the truth. What are we facing?" The guardians' ships lit up once more. And for a moment, everyone thought an answer was coming. But instead, the sky returned to silence. The ships hovered, glowing like silver suns. And the voice never spoke again. The question was left hanging in the hearts of humanity. Because no one promises protection unless there is a threat. And if the guardians would not speak of the enemy, then maybe the enemy was already closer than anyone could imagine. That night, fear spread across Earth faster than any fire. And the simple question of one farmer became the most important question in human history. Daniel's question echoed across the planet. "Protect us from what?" But the guardians never replied. Their silver ships remained in the sky, glowing faintly like moons. Nations waited for an explanation, but days passed, and no new words came. At first, humanity hoped. Some said the guardians were simply testing patience. Others believed the answer would come in time. But silence stretched longer, and silence slowly turned into fear. In the streets of London, New Delhi, Cairo, and New York, people gathered. Some carried banners that read, "Guardians are saviors." Others screamed, "Go home, invaders." The world was splitting into two sides, those who trusted and those who doubted. Daniel Hayes became an unwilling symbol. He was followed everywhere by reporters. Cameras filled his farm. Helicopters circled above. His children cried at night, scared of the lights in the sky. But Daniel did not hide. He kept asking the same question. From what? One night, Daniel was woken by a strange humming. He stepped outside and saw a beam of light shining down on his barn. For a second, he thought the guardians had come for him. But when the light faded, the barn door stood open, and burned into the ground were three strange symbols. Symbols no human language could explain. News spread quickly. Some scientists said the markings were warnings. Others said they were coordinates. The guardians, however, gave no answer. Inside the United Earth Council, arguments grew louder. General Reyes of the American forces slammed his fist on the table. "They are preparing us for war," he said. "They know something is coming, but they refuse to share it." A minister from Europe shook her head. "Or maybe they are the threat, and the silence is part of their plan." Voices clashed, alliances cracked. The very unity the Guardians had created was now beginning to fall apart. Meanwhile, strange events began to happen. Ships vanished in the Atlantic with no distress calls. Entire herds of animals were found dead in the plains of Africa, their bodies untouched, but their eyes wide with terror. In Siberia, miners reported tunnels that were not man-made, stretching deep beneath the ice. And everywhere, people noticed something odd. The Guardians' ships always hovered far from these sites, as if avoiding them. Daniel was called before the council. He stood in front of leaders and generals, his voice steady though his heart was heavy. "You wanted me to speak for the people," he said. "Then listen. Our fear is not the Guardians, it is the silence." The council demanded he reveal more about the symbols on his land. But Daniel only shook his head. "They are not for me to understand. They are for all of us." That night, Daniel sat on his porch, staring at the sky. His wife whispered, "Maybe you should stop asking. Maybe silence is safer." But Daniel knew silence never saved anyone. And deep inside, he felt the truth. The Guardians were not refusing to answer because they wished to. They were refusing because the answer itself was too terrible to speak. As the world grew restless, whispers spread that another force was approaching Earth. Something older, something darker. And every day the Guardians stayed silent. That fear grew stronger. Then came the night the first Guardian ship fell from the sky. It did not crash like metal. It dissolved into light, breaking into 1,000 sparks. The people watching screamed in terror. If the Guardians were protectors, then who had the power to destroy them? The silence was finally broken. But the answer was not words. The answer was war. The world watched in horror as the first Guardian ship dissolved into fragments of light. It did not burn like metal. It did not fall like stone. It simply broke apart as though it had never truly existed. For hours, scientists argued on global broadcasts. Some claimed it was a failure of Guardian technology. Others swore it was proof that another force had struck them down. But the Guardians gave no answers. Their remaining ships floated silently above Earth, unmoving, unshaken. Panic spread faster than fire. If the Guardians could be destroyed, then who would protect humanity? And if something had attacked them, then surely that something was coming for Earth. In villages, people locked their doors and prayed. In cities, riots broke out. Markets collapsed, governments declared emergencies. And through it all, Daniel Hayes was haunted by the strange symbols burned into his land. Late at night, he studied them by lantern light. 3 symbols, sharp and curved, glowing faintly as if alive. He traced them with his fingers, but every time he looked too long, his head ached. It was as if the markings were not just shapes, but warnings. Messages in a language humanity was never meant to read. Then, something new appeared. Astronomers detected movement beyond Mars. Objects moving in the void of space, too many to count. At first, they thought it was debris. But then the patterns became clear, formations like fleets. The Guardian's ships in Earth's orbit brightened. For the first time in weeks, they moved. Slowly, silently, they shifted their positions, forming a shield around the planet. It was the first true sign that danger was real. The council met again, their faces pale with fear. General Reyes slammed the table once more. "There is your answer. They are protecting us from what's coming." The European minister whispered. "Or they are preparing to fight their own enemies. And Earth is just caught in the middle." Daniel was brought forward once more. "Ask them," the council begged. But when Daniel stood before the cameras, the Guardian spoke only one sentence. "The enemy approaches." The words chilled every human to the bone. No name, no explanation, no reason, just those 3 words. And then, Earth felt the first strike. A flash lit up the night sky as one of the distant objects broke apart. For a moment, people thought the threat was over. But within hours, meteors began crashing into Earth's atmosphere. Not rocks, machines, burning with unnatural fire. They slammed into deserts, oceans, mountains, each impact shaking the ground for miles. From the Sahara to the Pacific, the sky rained fire. And from the craters, things began to crawl out. They were not human, they were not guardian. They were shadows with bodies of metal and skin, eyes glowing like burning coals, voices like static. The first battles began in silence. A guardian ship fired beams of light, burning one of the creatures to ash. But for every enemy destroyed, more crawled from the impact sites. The guardians fought without speaking, and humanity watched, powerless, from below. Daniel stood on his porch, staring at the horizon where fire lit the sky. His wife clutched his arm, whispering, "This is the war they promised." But Daniel's heart grew heavier. Because if the Guardians had feared to name the enemy, then perhaps even they did not believe Earth could survive what was coming. The first wave of attacks had shaken the world. Burning machines fell from the sky like fireballs. And from each crater, strange creatures emerged. Some had metal shells with claws sharper than blades. Others walked on four legs, their skin black and wet like oil. Their eyes glowed red, and their movements were fast, almost too fast for human eyes. The Guardians fought them with light. Their ships fired beams that split the air like thunder. Whole groups of the invaders turned to ash in seconds. Yet for every one destroyed, 3 more seemed to crawl from the shadows. Human armies tried to fight. Tanks rolled into deserts. Jets screamed through the skies. But bullets shattered. Rockets barely slowed the creatures down. Soldiers died screaming, their weapons useless against the enemy's unnatural strength. Panic consumed the cities. Millions fled from coastlines, hiding in mountains and bunkers. Governments ordered evacuations, but no place felt safe, because the invaders were everywhere. For the first time, humanity saw the enemy up close. Daniel watched through a cracked TV screen in his farmhouse. A reporter screamed as the camera showed one of the creatures. Its body looked like bones wrapped in black wires. Its face had no mouth, only a burning circle of light where eyes should be. It grabbed a soldier by the chest and lifted him like paper. And then it spoke, in a voice that was not sound, but vibration. "We are reclaiming." The words shook through every broadcast, every radio, every screen. Even those with no signal heard the voice whispering inside their heads. It was not language, it was command. Cold, sharp, final. The Guardians answered by firing a storm of light. But again, silence followed. They never explained who the enemy was, or why they came. In the United Earth Council, chaos ruled. Leaders shouted, generals demanded nuclear strikes. But scientists warned that weapons would kill more humans than invaders. The council turned to Daniel once more. "What do they want?" asked the Guardians. But when Daniel faced the sky, no voice came. The Guardians remained silent, their ships glowing but distant. Daniel clenched his fists, rage building in his chest. "Then I'll ask them myself," he whispered. That night, he walked back to the burned symbols in his field. As he stepped closer, the markings glowed brighter. Suddenly, his mind filled with visions. Worlds torn apart, cities shattered, oceans boiling. He saw the enemy swarming across stars, consuming planets. And in every vision, the Guardians stood as last defenders. Not victorious, but desperate. Daniel collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. He realized the truth. The Guardians had not come to save Earth out of kindness. They had come because Earth was next in the path of destruction. The invaders were not simply conquerors. They were exterminators. And the Guardian's silence was not cruelty. It was fear. When Daniel opened his eyes, the symbols on the ground faded. And far above, another Guardian ship exploded in light. Humanity now knew the enemy was not just powerful. It was unstoppable. The war for Earth had only just begun. And already, the Guardians were losing. The Guardians were losing. Every day, another of their great ships dissolved into sparks of light. The invaders, creatures of metal and shadow, seemed endless. They poured out of craters, out of oceans, even from tunnels deep under the ground. Humanity could no longer just watch. At first, armies had failed. Guns were weak, rockets too small, and tanks crushed like toys. But humans were stubborn. If one weapon failed, they built another. If one city fell, they moved to the next. Daniel Hayes had never been a soldier. Yet people came to him. Farmers, workers, scientists, even deserters from broken armies. They all believed in the man who had dared to question the Guardians. And on his farm, they began to plan. It started small, homemade traps, explosives built from fertilizer. But soon engineers arrived, carrying scraps of alien metal collected from battlefields. A group of scientists from Europe brought strange devices hacked from Guardian drones. They whispered, "If they won't tell us their secrets, we'll make our own." Together, humans created weapons that were not meant to exist. Guns firing shards of alien alloy. Bombs pulsing with stolen Guardian energy. And armor stitched from both steel and fabric. Ugly, heavy, dangerous, but human, Daniel became a leader, though he never asked for it. He stood before his ragged group and said, "We don't need promises, we need action." And for the first time, humans prepared to fight back, not with hope, but with fury. The first real battle came in the ruins of Houston. The invaders swarmed the streets, their glowing eyes scanning for survivors. Daniel and his fighters waited in silence, hidden in broken buildings. When the creatures entered the city center, the humans struck. Explosives ripped through the air, alien metal piercing alien flesh. The monsters screamed in voices like static, collapsing under fire they had never expected. It was not a victory, but it was not a loss either. For the first time, humans killed the enemy without the Guardians' help. Word spread fast. Humans can fight, people whispered. And across the world, more groups rose from the ashes. Resistance was born. Yet even in victory, fear remained. Because the invaders did not fight like normal armies. They did not retreat, they did not rest. For every one destroyed, more arrived. And sometimes, the enemy changed. Adapting, shifting, growing harder to kill. Daniel knew humanity could not win with weapons alone. They needed knowledge. They needed to understand why Earth had been chosen. So one night, while others slept, he stood beneath the Guardians' glowing ships. His voice rose into the dark sky. "If you want us to survive, then tell us the truth." For hours, nothing happened. Then, at last, a single beam of light shone down on him. It wrapped around his body, lifting him slowly into the air. His wife screamed, his children cried, but Daniel did not resist. He vanished into the light, and the world realized the Guardians had finally chosen. Humanity would no longer only be protected, it would be tested. Daniel rose into the beam of light, his body weightless. The world below vanished, replaced by blinding silver corridors. He landed softly inside a Guardian ship, its walls alive with shifting symbols. The air hummed with energy, neither hot nor cold, but heavy with meaning. Figures appeared, tall, luminous beings of light and shadow. Their forms seemed human, yet not. Faces without mouths, eyes glowing like suns. For the first time, Daniel was standing among the Guardians. He wanted to demand answers. But before he could speak, a voice filled his mind. "You asked the question, now you will see the answer." The walls around him changed into visions. He saw planets far away, covered in oceans and forests. He saw them burning, torn apart by the same invaders that now walked on Earth. Cities of alien races crumbled, skies filled with fire. And always, at the end, only silence remained. Daniel staggered back, his heart racing. "You mean they've done this everywhere?" "Yes," the Guardian's voice replied. "They are the reclaimers." Images shifted again, showing the invaders as swarms moving through galaxies. They devoured technology, consumed resources, erased species. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for something older. They believe the universe belongs only to them, the Guardians whispered. Every world they touch, they erase life to reclaim it as their own. Daniel's fists clenched. "Then why didn't you tell us? Why stay silent?" The Guardians paused, their glowing forms dimming. "Because truth breaks faster than silence. Your kind is young, unprepared. We feared if you knew the scale of the war, you would surrender before fighting." Daniel shook his head, anger rising. "Humans don't surrender. We survive. We fight. We always have." His voice echoed in the great hall. And for the first time, the Guardians did not answer. Instead, they showed him something even worse. A vision of Earth itself. The planet surrounded by fire. Oceans boiling, mountains torn apart, cities falling into ash. And above it all, the reclaimers feeding on the ruins. It was not a possibility. It was a future. Daniel fell to his knees, tears burning in his eyes. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how we can fight them. One of the guardians stepped closer, its form flickering. You already began. When your kind built weapons from scraps, when you resisted without us. You did what no other species has ever done. You fought back. The hall pulsed with light. Daniel felt something pressed into his hands. It was small, metallic, warm to the touch. This is the seed of fire, the voice said. Knowledge hidden, power forbidden. No other race was trusted with it. But perhaps humanity is different. Daniel looked down at the object. Its surface glowed with shifting lines, almost alive. What is it? He asked, his voice shaking. The guardian's voice grew darker. A weapon not of destruction, but of creation. If you use it wisely, your people may survive. If you use it poorly, you will destroy yourselves before the enemy ever does. Before Daniel could reply, the beam of light returned. The guardian's hull dissolved. And in an instant, he was back on his farm, clutching the strange device. His wife ran to him, terrified. What happened? What did they do to you? Daniel looked at the glowing object in his hand. And for the first time since the guardians arrived, he understood. The future of Earth was not only in their hands anymore. It was in his. Daniel stood in the ruins of his farm, the strange device glowing in his hands. The guardians had called it the seed of fire. A weapon of creation, not destruction. But no human knew how to use it. Scientists from every nation rushed to him. They studied the seed, scanning, probing, but its secrets stayed hidden. Only Daniel could touch it without pain. The device seemed alive, responding to his thoughts, almost as if it had chosen him. The reclaimers did not wait. Their machines swarmed across continents. Cities burned, oceans filled with black ships. The guardians fought above the skies, but their numbers dwindled. One by one, their silver vessels dissolved into sparks of light. Earth was on the edge of collapse. And still, the guardians gave no commands. It was humans who had to decide. Daniel gathered leaders, soldiers, scientists, and ordinary people. He placed the seed of fire on the table. This is not mine, he said. It is ours. The guardians trusted us because they saw what we are, stubborn, desperate, and unwilling to kneel. Together, they worked. The seed pulsed brighter each day, unlocking fragments of knowledge. Blueprints appeared in glowing light. Machines of energy and metal that no human could ever have imagined. Weapons powered not by destruction, but by life itself. Engines that drew strength from Earth's sun. Shields grown from living metal that healed when struck. Factories rose in secret bunkers. Workshops glowed in ruined cities. Humans built not just with science, but with determination. And within weeks, the first human-forged fleet was born. When the next wave of reclaimers descended, they found not broken armies, but ships rising from Earth itself. Human ships, ugly, raw, and imperfect, but burning with a power the enemy had never faced before. The battle was brutal. Skies lit with fire, seas churned with wreckage. But for the first time, the Guardians were not alone. Human ships fought beside them. Human soldiers in new armor stood their ground. And Daniel himself led from the front, his hands guiding the seed of fire, amplifying its power into the weapons of Earth. The reclaimers roared. Their shadows spread across the stars. But humanity did not break. Every strike that should have ended them only fueled their rage. Every death only hardened their will. At last, the seed unleashed its final gift. A wave of light that spread across Earth's skies. It did not destroy, it remade. The reclaimers' machines withered, their black shells crumbling into dust. The survivors fled into the void. And for the first time in living memory, silence fell not in fear, but in victory. Earth was scarred, but alive. The Guardians hovered silently, their numbers broken, their strength fading. One of them spoke for the last time. You are unlike any race we have known. Others waited to be saved, but you saved yourselves. And then, the remaining Guardian ships dissolved into light, leaving Earth behind. For better or worse, humanity was alone again. Daniel stood beneath the empty sky, the seed of fire fading in his hands. He knew the war was not over. The reclaimers would return one day, stronger. But now the universe was different. Because humanity had stood, fought, and proved the truth. They were not a race to be protected. They were a race to be feared.